Welcome to the Equinety podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Equinety podcast. And today we've got a very special guest on, Elise Parsons. I appreciate you being on the podcast. This is something new that we've started, and I wanted it to be around education and some fun, and also, of course, getting into Equinety. But before we get into all of that, some of your background, you were a vet tech for several years, and then you transitioned over into a full-time trainer. So
yeah, I was a vet assistant for 6 years. Some of that time was spent in exclusive large animal, and the rest of that was spent in two different mixed practices that did both small and large animal.
Right.
And I made the leap into full-time trainer and instructor about 5 years ago.
Nice. So while you were doing the vet tech and tech assistant, were you also training at that time, just kind of on the side?
Yes.
Yeah. And
yes. I've always done a little bit of my own off-the-track thoroughbred retraining, reselling. And then about 6 years ago, I started teaching lessons and slowly building that on the side.
Right. And so with your training, I know when we were speaking the other day, pretty much all of your basic groundwork starts with dressage, and then you kind of expand out from there.
Correct. All of the students and horses have to start in dressage to learn the basics, since dressage is just basic manners and control under saddle, and then depending on what the horse rider shows interest in, their training becomes specialized from there, either in eventing or hunters, jumpers, or strictly staying in dressage.
So as a trainer, what would be one of your, we'll say your biggest challenges with students coming in? As far as, do they have super high expectations? They might think it's easy, and so you got to bring it.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them come in thinking that they can, jump within the fourth lesson. And some of the newer TV shows really don't help that much. So unfortunately, I have to kind of spend that first month saying, no, you don't know half of what you think you know. And then once you tear them down enough, you build them back up.
Yes. Yeah. As a good trainer would, a good coach.
Yep.
Yeah. So now that you've been in full-time training now for 5-6 years, and I would imagine business is growing. You've got a lot of clientele growing there.
Yes, I actually have a wait list for my lesson times.
Nice.
So it's really handy to be able to be in that spot where I don't have to make everything happen.
Yes, right. So I would assume, and for those listening out there that may or may not know the operations of kind of what you're doing, are you providing horses to certain clientele, or they bring in their own horses in, or a combination of their both?
Combination of thereabove. I have lesson horses for people that either don't have their own horses or need to ride something that's a little more schooled or work on a special something that their horse isn't providing them. Mm-hmm. And then I also have some people who keep horses really close by and basically can lead their horses over to the farm to get ready and ride for their lessons. And then, of course, I have the ones who haul in for lessons with their own. Right.
Now, I know when we first started talking several months ago, you had sent in some pictures of a horse, Hank, I believe his name is.
That is correct.
Yep. And so in the section below here, below the audio podcast, we'll have everything listed in text form for you to read, but we'll have the pictures of Hank, and the pictures that you sent in were, they don't look like the same horse.
No. And I got a lot of flack for people trying to say I was trying to pass off two different horses, but no, it really is still Hank.
Yep.
Hank came to me as one of my students' short stirrup hunter show pony, and he was in a really nice facility over doing the hunter circuit. And as she outgrew Hank, she wanted to transition more towards eventing. And so we worked out a trade, and I traded one of my thoroughbred prospects for Hank. So now he's a lesson pony in my program and making the transition from a hunter to a dressage horse. And being in my lesson program, he's getting ridden between 1 and 3 times a week on average. Of course, there's the oddball week that he gets off, or the oddball week he has to pick up because another horse got injured and works 5 days in a row, and he thinks that's just terrible. Because he is a pony after all.
Right.
But his workload isn't what I would call very intense. It's light to moderate. He gets everything from the walk-only lessons to a lot of walk-trot lessons and a couple riders that canter him. And the biggest difference I noticed in him was his top line. And so he's gone from, a hunter program where he was ridden consistently 3 days a week to my, kind of off and on 1 to 3 trotting a lot of times program, which is a lighter workload. And he has packed on so much muscle, he doesn't look like the same horse. And it was actually his previous owners who noticed it first, since I see him every day. We were at a show, and she kept going on and on and on about his neck. I'm like, yeah, his neck looks better, whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And then when I took the after picture and put it next to the before, I was like, oh, like he really has changed.
Right.
His neck is completely different and massive. Obviously, I work with a very talented farrier, and he had some pretty bad contracted heels that we've been working on, but that alongside with the Equinety has given him the nutrition he needed to stay barefoot so we could work on the contracted heels a little bit better.
Right.
Because he had thinner soles and was a shoe puller and all of that, and that's, fitting shoes tight to keep him from pulling the shoes is what developed the contracted heels. But now that he has enough sole that's healthy, he can be barefoot, and we're able to push the toe back, and we're able to get his heels to open up. So he's moving a lot better than he has. And he was one that had to be in his aluminum front shoes, or he looked basically crippled. And he's fine barefoot on all footing. So
nice.
we show him barefoot. We go, everywhere barefoot. And he is fine. He's better than a lot of my thoroughbreds are with shoes.
Yeah, right. Well, and one of the things that was such a stark contrast in the pictures was you started using the Equinety initially. Now, of course, with adding the extra muscle and the weight and the hoof growth and everything else, with all the exercise that he's getting, that's definitely going to help with adding muscle and top line. But you add as you mentioned, adding the proper nutrition and the things. How much would, and I'll ask you a leading question here, because this is the Equinety podcast.
Of course.
But how much would you say that Equinety had to do with that transformation of Hank?
I would say it had a lot to do with his muscle transformation, because when he came to me, he was on what I'd say, higher mid-range grain, and he was getting about 4 pounds of that a day. And so when he came to me, I kept him on that. I added a couple other fat supplements because he still looked a little thin, and I didn't think a pony should need that much grain, so I didn't want to just bump the grain up to like my thoroughbred amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And we were still struggling with weight, and he just wasn't looking good at all. Not what I'd like. He had dapples, he had shine, he just didn't look what I like my guys to look like, especially a hunter pony. Hunter ponies are supposed to be fat. And so I added in the Equinety, and he's on a dry lot along with a couple other horses. It's the same hay, so that hasn't changed. He's gone from his 4 pounds a day plus fat supplements down to now he gets Equinety, an electrolyte, and half a pound of grain a day. That's it.
Wow.
So I don't think that transformation would have happened without the Equinety, because of how much problem I was having early on just getting him to cover his ribs.
Right. And then you mentioned also with the hoof growth, and that was all during the time that you've been giving Equinety as well.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things that we spoke about when we talked a few days ago, with your background in science and being around veterinarians and vet tech and things like that, and I know this happens a lot because here's Equinety. It's a new product on the market. Well, it's been on for 4 years now, but more and more people are being exposed to it. And so, there's people that want, peer-reviewed studies, and they want all of this background in the research, which is completely understandable. And with your background of the science and everything else, what was your immediate reaction to Equinety when you first saw it and kind of read through the testimonials and everything? Just what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Well, I was the same way. I wanted peer-reviewed studies because there's so few supplements out there that have that. I value those that do. And I didn't understand the difference between feeding protein and feeding amino acids, because protein is built up of amino acids, and my guys get enough protein in their diet. I really didn't see how this was going to help.
Right. And for those that don't understand that, when we, people, dogs, horses, eat protein, the body has to take the proteins and use its energy to break everything down into amino acids. And that's why amino acids are called the building blocks of protein. And then the body takes those amino acids and rebuilds them back into the necessary proteins. So Equinety is already in that stage of absorption. I mean, it's ready for absorption, right, ready to go to work. And so looking at Hank, for example, it's why, and we get this all the time with pictures, the coat color change, but the stronger and faster hoof growth and things like that. So we're definitely blessed to have such an amazing product that does so many things. But one of the other things that I want to chat about is something that you are very passionate about, called the Retired Racehorse Project. And yes. When you were telling me about it, and maybe a lot of people know about this, but for those who don't, I think it's a great thing to talk about, and it's very fascinating. So tell us a little bit about that.
The Retired Racehorse Project was founded about 6 years ago, and it's a group that puts on an annual competition called the Thoroughbred Makeover. And basically, within 10 months, you have to take an off-the-track thoroughbred, retrain them in a new discipline, and go to this massive show. I mean, there's 500 horses competing in this show, and show them in one of 10 disciplines. The top 3 from each discipline then compete against each other for America's Most Wanted Thoroughbred. And, of course, there's quite a bit of prize money involved.
Yep.
That's what drives people to want to come and compete to it and get the value of thoroughbreds back up in America, because they are such an amazing sport horse that has been overlooked with the importation of warm-bloods. And, you get a lot of off-the-track thoroughbreds that they have body soreness issues. Their feet are trained to grow differently than we want them to grow as a sport horse. They can have some mental exhaustion, depending on the trainer and all of that as well. And so I have valued the Equinety in their transition back into sport horse, because it really seems to shorten that new life change shock that they go through.
Mm-hmm. That is awesome. When is the next event?
The 2018 Thoroughbred Makeover is October 4th through 7th at the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington, Kentucky. They currently have applications open, so you go to their website, fill out a trainer application. They will announce all of the trainers who have been accepted at the beginning of February, and you don't have to announce which horse you're bringing or anything like that until much later in the year, so that if you run into issues with a horse, you have time to find another, or if you don't know what discipline you want to do with that particular horse, you don't have to pick now. You get to mess around with them for a little bit first.
Right. And how many horses are in the competition?
500 thoroughbreds.
500 thoroughbreds, wow.
I think they actually accepted quite a bit more last year, because, like any show, there's a little bit of an attrition rate before you get to the show themselves.
Sure.
But it's a huge deal, and it's a massive show. They have so many different rings going on. at the same time for those days, there are clinics at the end that people like Elise Wallace or Stuart Pittman, he's one of the founders, offer clinics to the trainers who are in there at extremely reduced rates. So you can show off your thoroughbred in a clinic and people can watch, and you get to train with amazing trainers at astonishing rates.
Nice. And what would you say we'll call it the caliber of horse? Are they all experienced horses? Are they brand new to, or young horses, or what's their?
You see everything from more horses who had more than 50 starts that are, older, 10 to 15 being retrained, and to, I've got 2 3-year-olds that I want to take.
Mm-hmm.
So you have babies, you have ones who kind of know the drill, but before the makeover is started, they can't have had any retraining in any of the disciplines. So prior to December 1st of this year, any horse that's entered into the 2018 makeover cannot have more than 15 rides after the track. So we're all on a level playing field when it comes to experience in the new disciplines.
Right. That is very interesting. Well, I know one of the things that Equinety is looking into is, and as you kind of mentioned, is doing some sponsorship within that project to help get these horses, in their tip-top shape. And one of the great things that the product also does is help with anxiety and stress, and which in that kind of an event, as most all events, as you're traveling around and doing things, that's one of the big things that they need help with, so to speak.
That was actually the thing that made me get final jump and give Equinety a try. My 2016 thoroughbred makeover horse is now my own personal show horse. And while we would do really well at home, his anxiety on property was out of control. He would do it, but he'd be very tense and look like a little sewing machine in his trot instead of his nice, large, big, pretty stride. I mean, he's fancy, but he would look terrible at shows.
Right.
And so I talked to one of your sponsored riders, who's a good friend of mine, about her experience with it and how it's helped with her horses who are off-the-track thoroughbreds who have had some anxiety at shows as well. And I did not want to go the calming supplement route because even the legal calming supplements I don't like to use because it's not addressing the root issue. Mm-hmm. I don't think anxiety is going to be treated by raspberry leaves, and all of that. While it can help the first few times, help them learn and understand, I didn't feel like that was going to help my 2016 makeover horse. So I got a bunch of samples since I have so many horses and started the Equinety about 3 days before I had an event to take my horse to. And so this was trial by fire.
Right.
And we made up to Kentucky, which that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. And did our show, and the friend that I went with said, "Oh my God, I've never seen him this relaxed at a show." Now, mind you, he's still tense.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like it normally was. It was the best trot work we'd gotten in our dressage tests, and his canter was controllable, and it was nice. And I'm like, okay. So, stage 1, 3 days, I'm pleased with it. So the next week, I had my normal dressage lesson with my dressage instructor, and she commented something about how his eye looked so much better and he acted so much more relaxed that day. And that's when I told her about Equinety and that I had him on it, and I was noticing these changes too, and blah, blah, blah. And it took her a while to understand that, no, it's not a calming supplement, it's just amino acids. And after she looked into it, now she actually sells Equinety out of her barn as well. And she's noticed a lot of similar changes in her warm blood, thoroughbreds, quarter horses, all of her barn.
That is so awesome. Now, I'm going to back up to a comment that you said earlier, because when we were talking about peer-reviewed studies, which, by the way, Equinety does not have, because it actually started as a human product back in 1998 from a British and Cambridge and Harvard-educated family physician. And when you are looking, or it makes you, as you said, it makes you feel better or feel good that there's peer-reviewed studies. And now knowing that Equinety didn't have that, were you a bit apprehensive? What made you just said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot anyways? And then what was your thoughts on that?
Of course it made me apprehensive. I want to see something that has a little more proof behind it, because testimonials are only that. They're testimonials, and just because someone thought they saw an improvement in one horse does not impress me. There's so many placebo effects out there in owners' perception as well that it's not something that I hold a lot of value in.
Mm-hmm.
What finally, like I said, I was frustrated with how poorly my horse and I were doing at shows when I know he could do so much better. And one of your sponsored riders is a dear friend of mine, and she went through a very similar experience, and she'd been touting how well Equinety did with her horses. And so I just messaged her and said, all right, give me the truth. Like, tell me about this, what you've noticed, how long it took. I want to know, honestly, how you think it's helped, because I don't see how it's helped. I don't understand how it could.
Mm-hmm.
And I even called you, and I'm like, tell me why. Why is this different than the alfalfa and beef pulp and all the other quality stuff that I feed? Why? How?
Right.
My husband has been making pet food for a living for 17 years in research and development for it. And after I started using Equinety and seeing these results, I talked to him for a little bit about it. And he said, oh, yeah, that's like the only supplement I would ever actually endorse you trying. He said, amino acids, we've proven that in animals on and on. I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah, thanks for telling me there, husband.
I know. I'm like, I've tried all these stuff for all these years.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yeah, well, this is like the only thing I could actually see working. Good job.
Yeah, well, that's what we husbands do, tend to keep some things back from the wives. Just, every now and then we like to shine once every 10 or 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Okay, well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, there's a couple other horses that you had on product, one by the name of Elmo and one Sandman. And, of course, you had already seen the benefits with Hank, which the before and after, and we'll also post the collage of his changes over the time. But tell us a little bit. By the way, I want to personally thank you for all of the we posted, I ran an ad on Facebook with Hank, the before and after, and Elise was completely torn up, and with several people, and, man, you just held your ground and battled. It was so much fun to watch, but I do feel a little responsible for some of that, but you held your own.
All right.
So, okay, so tell us a little bit about Elmo and what happened with him.
Okay, so about 6 weeks ago, Elmo was turned out with the group as usual. We added a new horse to the herd, which isn't too unusual since I do a lot with off-the-track thoroughbreds. He came in holding up one of his back legs. I assumed he had an abscess because thoroughbreds, I went to go pick his foot, and running my hand down his leg, his hop was the size of grapefruit, but more. Like, it was definitely bigger than a grapefruit, but smaller than probably a gallon jug. We'll call it a milk jug. And so, my heart just sank because the little 10-year-old girl was absolutely in love with this horse. And so I take pictures, I send him to the vet, I poultice it, I ice it, and all of that. She decides to give me 24 hours to get some swelling out of it so it can get higher quality x-rays. Because I've had chipped hops before, and I just knew in my heart of hearts that he'd broken something in there and was going to have surgery, and, it just tore me apart. Well, she came out and took x-rays. Nothing was broken. He just sprained his hop. He pulled one of the ligaments on the inside of his hop. Pretty bad. So we spent the next 2 weeks doing ultrasound therapy, hot and cold, alternating between hot and cold, stall rest, etc. The whole shebang like you do for ligament injuries. Getting the swelling down as much as possible. At about the 2.5-week mark, we hauled into the clinic and did some platelet-rich plasma injections. Before that, I had turned him out. He was sound. Now, he would run around just a little bit and aggravate it and be unsound, so we put him back in the stall, because it was a balancing act with his mental sanity, being a 6-year-old thoroughbred, of he's got to have some turnout, but he can't have too much. When we did the PRP, about 2.5 weeks in, I asked the vet, so where do you think we are on the healing process? Are we on schedule, ahead, or behind? Because with having to put him out in the turnout, I was concerned. She said, oh my God, you're so far ahead of schedule, it's not even, it's crazy. So, okay, good. We did another week of stall rest after the PRP injection. He's been turned back out now pretty much full-time, weather permitting. And obviously, I'm not going to put a ligament injury out on slick mud. And he started under saddle this week. So we went from this, massively swollen hawk to being ridden in 6 weeks. Under that supervision, we've ultrasounded it, we x-rayed it, we've done everything right, we're not pushing things ahead that we shouldn't be. So we are definitely way ahead of schedule of where you would expect to be with how he looked. And he is still sound. We're trotting under saddle, and he's sound.
Nice. That is so awesome. And then shortly after that, before. It was right before, yes it was, about Sandman was another little story.
Yep. Sandman and I were at a dressage clinic, and he took a bad step, but seemed to work out of it very quickly. The next morning, I go and do my routine, and his fetlock is a little swollen, and he's lame. And I'm just, oh God, of course. And he's my 2016 makeover horse. He's my main show horse. And so I text the vet because I don't like that we have swelling associated with a lameness. Otherwise, you just typically think abscess. He did not have the strongest of digital pulses. So again, this can't just be an abscess. So she actually came out to the farm, which is why I don't have a screen capture of the ultrasound. We ultrasounded the fetlock, and he slightly pulled the insertion of one of his oblique sesamoidal ligament. And it's just the tiniest of little pulls. So she said, just 2 weeks turnout, obviously not if it's sloppy, keep them in a stall if it's sloppy. And then resume work slowly in 2 weeks. Okay, not the end of the world. We can manage that. Well, 5 days later is when Elmo sprained his hawk, and the vet was out to take x-rays of that. So while she was out, I'm like, I know I sound crazy, his swelling's gone, he's looking really sound to turn out. Just take the ultrasound to his oblique sesamoidal ligament. Let's see where we are in healing. And it was completely healed.
Wow.
5 days later, any of the gap that we saw on the oblique sesamoidal ligament had filled in.
That is insane.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. And I believe my vet is now recommending people buy Equinety.
What?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know. My feed store said there's a female vet me and a female vet who have been recommending it, and all of the people that come in and buy it are referred typically from me or some female vet. I'm like, there's only one female vet in the area. I told it's my vet. So I haven't talked to her about it to confirm it's her, but
yeah, we kind of know.
I kind of know.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing all of your information and your passions and all the kudos around Equinety and how that's helped your horses and all of your insight. And I really appreciate that, and I'm sure we'll be doing some more updates in the future.
Oh, not a problem whatsoever. And if anybody wants to private message me on Facebook and ask questions or anything like that, they're more than welcome to.
That is awesome. We'll put a link in the blog here. But Elise Parsons, everybody, this is where I'll input some clapping from a fake audience. All right. Well, Elise, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you bet.
Bye.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.